Prior to his appointment at Enterprise Florida, Mr. Johnson enjoyed a 35-year career with Miami-Dade County government. There, Bill served many roles, including the director of Port Miami, the assistant county manager, and he had oversight at the Miami International Airport. In addition, Bill was the director of the Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department and also had management responsibilities for a number of the county's large infrastructure projects. And one notable example is the construction of the American Airlines Arena. There's really not enough time to mention all of Bill's accomplishments and the many very important organizations for which he serves. Bill earned a master's degree in public administration at the University of Tennessee. And lastly, and most importantly, Bill was born in the Akron area, a product of Northeast Ohio. Please join me in welcoming the President and CEO of Enterprise Florida, Bill Johnson.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and indeed it's a pleasure for me to stand here and look out at the beautiful vista. I have to say, before I get into my remarks, you're fortunate to live not only one of the most beautiful parts of our state, but really one of the most beautiful parts of our nation. So this is my third visit in 6 months as the head of Enterprise Florida, my third visit to this beautiful part of our state. And it clearly won't be my last. I'll be back here in a few weeks, actually in October. So it's always a pleasure to be here. So again, thank you. I want to extend my appreciation to the Okaloosa County Economic Development Council for the invitation. It's always great to be back. A number of you in this audience I've had the pleasure of spending time with, getting to know you, your companies, elected leaders. I've met a number of them over the last number of months in my visits here. Ron, I want to thank you for the good introduction. And while I was born in the little area of outside of Akron, Ohio, most of my adult life has been spent either in Tennessee, where I went to the university, or for the last, now I'm in my 36th year in the great state of Florida, which is, the state of Florida is my home. So I love it. Nothing wrong with Ohio, but we compete with Ohio for business. So this is my home. We compete with Tennessee. This is my home. So I'm glad to be here. Certainly glad that, and I feel blessed and fortunate that Governor Scott extended an offer, an invitation for me to join part of the team, what I like to call Team Florida. But I'm thankful to our governor, and I will tell you in my 35, now 36-year career, I've had many great bosses, but Governor Scott is clearly a unique individual, and he's a great boss. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity that the governor extended me. I'm very appreciative for the roughly 60 private companies that constitute the board of Enterprise Florida. These are investor members. They spend not only their capital to be an investor and help to support us, but they also spend a lot of their time and their energy. So that's important. Representative Gates, I saw you something right there. Thank you for your leadership. Part of my remarks this morning will deal with really what is a lot of press, and no criticism of the media. We like the media, but there's a lot of media about this controversy between Enterprise Florida, our governor, and our legislature, and I'm hoping to dispel a lot of that. One of the most important things that I can do as the head of Enterprise Florida is work in a collegial way, in a professional way, in a respectful way with our elected officials at all levels, and in particular with the Florida legislature, the body that actually funds us to a great extent, in addition to our private partners, but also provide direction and help guide our state. And so I would never want, Representative, I would never want you or your colleagues to think that I, and I mean this sincerely, would ever be disrespectful to an elected official. I will tell you in my entire career, I've never been disrespectful to an elected official. I certainly respect those in the military who serve. I certainly respect those who give of their time to run for office, and it's not easy, especially to be away from your family and your business. So I respect individuals who do that. It's part of, to me, and in terms of being patriotic. It's the American democratic way, the democratic process. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, independent is irrelevant. We're all Americans. We all serve, hopefully, the same purpose of making our nation great. So great, it's really good to be with you. One of the fun things about this job, over the last 6 months, I've had the opportunity to travel around the state. And before that, I typically was flying around the state, usually to go visit family or loved ones in a different part of Florida. This job gets me the opportunity to be in a car. I'm fortunate that my assistant does the driving versus me, so we actually get there usually without being lost and on time, so thank you to Paul. But I will tell you that one of the things I've seen over the last 6 months as I've traveled the state of Florida is how diverse the state is, how wonderful the state is, how welcoming. The number one thing I think that we have to sell as a state are our people. And there's, and I have to tell you, we're called the Sunshine State. We're a welcoming state. We're a friendly state. We welcome everyone to the great state of Florida. But nowhere, and Paul commented on this a couple of nights ago, nowhere have we felt more welcomed in the last 6 months than here. And Paul said to me, over in Jackson County the other night, we had dinner Tuesday night in Jackson County. And Paul commented to me as we were leaving, he goes, man, the people here are just so friendly and so genuine. That is special, my friends. That is special. And I will tell you the number one thing companies talk to me about, large or small, when they're looking at Florida as a possible location for their company, is what? The quality of life. Number one thing we have, quality of life. We'll talk about that in a few minutes in terms of some of the other things. We have a very focused Florida legislature. Our Florida legislature is clearly focused, has been for the last number of years, on putting the money in the right spots, at least in my opinion. And I'm a Floridian, I pay taxes. I'll talk about some of this stuff in a moment. We lead the nation in investment in infrastructure. That's a huge way to sell this state. Number one in the nation out of 50 states, leading the way thanks to our governor, but our legislature. Our legislature doesn't get enough recognition. I mean this sincerely. We outspend every state. This year it's over $11 billion, our legislature. A lot of that flowing through the Florida Department of Transportation that does a wonderful job. Our roads, our airports, our ports, our rail, building for the future. This is record expenditure in protecting the environment. We got, nearly $20 billion from the legislature this year for education. One of the top two things that companies want when they go to a state and they talk to me, quality of education. I don't get into the politics, but fortunately we had a governor some years back named Jeb Bush. When Jeb started as governor, we were 44th in the nation in education. My friends, today we're number 7. Number 7. That's not Mississippi or Tennessee, where I went to school, or Alabama. States I compete with, that's us. And that's a big way to bring companies here, quality of education. But don't forget, as I begin my remarks, and I'm already off script, Paul. As I begin my remarks, I don't know why they write these speeches for me because I don't use them. Let me tell you, number one, quality of life. And it starts with you. It starts with being a welcoming, friendly state. So again, I was just with the governor yesterday. Believe it or not, I've been here 3 days, and the governor calls, says, I need to see you right away. Well, what am I going to tell him? No, I'm over in Fort Walton Beach. He goes, well, I need to see you right away. I said, yes, sir. So Paul, broke the speed limits and went about 85 miles an hour and got me back to the Capitol. And I met with the boss for a couple of hours. And again, I'll be blunt. What we're talking about is the legislature and, my view of where we need to go. And he is my boss. And behind closed doors, we can have a good conversation. And we need to have movement. We need the legislature to feel some love. We all want to feel respected. And so I'm very optimistic we're going to get there. I know we got some media in the audience, so I won't get into too much of the detail. I'll leave that up to the governor to work with the legislature himself. But I'm very optimistic in terms of where we, not Enterprise Florida, forget Enterprise Florida, where we, the state, are going. Part of what I've tried to do in the last 6 months, and where's Andrea Moore? She's there somewhere. Does she? Right there. There's my trusted assistant from this part. She lives over here. She represents us over here. She's 9 years, almost 10 years with us. She's what I call boots on the ground. You need boots on the ground. Part of what I wanted to do was change somewhat of the mindset of the culture of Enterprise Florida when I started 6 months ago. Part of the problem we have today, truthfully, with Enterprise Florida, we have not paid attention to the Florida legislature for years and years and years. How can you expect the people that write the checks to write a check if they don't really understand what you do, why you do it, who you are? It's called what? Showing respect. So a big part of my job is to spend time in the state capitol, out in the community, out in the districts like this, to see our elected representatives and to explain what we're doing and why we're doing it. We're not going to win, you and I, we're not going to win if we're just blasting the legislature, and that's not what I want to do. So going forward, let me tell you a couple things we're doing. I see great things here in the Great Northwest. I've been coming here way before I became Secretary of Commerce and head of EFI. My first trip to this part of the great nation was as a little boy. I think I was 5 years old, and it was in the late 60s. And I played in the Gulf of Mexico and got sunburned on a raft for a full day because I wouldn't listen to my mom. Kept saying, come in and put more, trying to put lotion on. Spent the day out in the water, had a great time, got a sunburn. And a week or two later, I saw in the evening news as a young kid, I think I was 5 years old, that the particular hotel I think we stayed on, I think it was a Holiday Inn. I can't remember if it was Pensacola or Panama City. I think it was Panama City. But that particular hotel was destroyed in this hurricane. I think it was in '69. But, and that had an impression on me as a young kid, which, what do you know as a young kid about hurricanes, especially coming from Ohio? So it was like, whoa. So, but anyways, I've been back many times since. When I chaired the Florida Ports Council some 5 or 6 years ago, I brought my fellow port directors from around the state for a 2-day event in Pensacola. We had, no, Panama City, sorry, in Panama City. We had an opportunity to spend 2 days and have our meeting because it's important that we, whether you're airports or your seaports, that you're working as a unit of one and that we see great areas. And I wanted my fellow port directors to see how beautiful this part of our state was. And then I came back, my friends at St. Joe, 3-4 years ago or longer, asked me to come up and spend a little time, talk about economic development, specifically how we work as a unit, how we work together. And as I move through my remarks, which I'm getting into right now, if nothing else, the takeaway from this is the importance of working as one. The importance of working as one. You win with a clear roadmap. You win with a clear vision. You win by partnering in an effective way. You win by working as one. And I have example after example after example in my entire career. I'm not the smartest kid around. I just work hard. It's the reason I get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. When you ain't that smart, you got to work a little harder. Okay, if you want to get a C, well, maybe you study 2 hours. You want the A, you got to maybe study 2 or 3 more hours to get that A. I wanted the A's because I wanted to go on to graduate school or to law school. So I had to work a little harder. And the same thing is true in business, and the same thing is true in government. I spent 35 years, and I hate bureaucracy. I'll be honest with you, not to offend government folks, I'm not a huge fan of government. Because oftentimes government becomes tired and lethargic and we're not innovative. But government, when it partners with private industry, private sector, my friends, you can have a win. And I made a career, 35 years in Miami, of taking messed up, there's other words I could use for that, messed up agencies that had become lethargic and tired and said, well, let's reinvigorate this. And you do that through strong leadership. You do that by saying to your fellow workers, we're on the 10-yard line and we got to score. You got to win by what? A game plan, a clear game plan. And I've made my career out of helping troubled agencies, whether it was the bankrupt Port of Miami, a troubled Miami International Airport, a really messed up, troubled up water and sewer, the largest infrastructure program in the nation, almost $14 billion down in Miami. That was really headed the wrong way. My boss, the mayor, called in and said, we need to straighten this mess out. Yeah, he recognized it could cost him his re-election. It's called what? Stepping to the plate, not being afraid of a challenge. That's what I tell the 90 people that work with me as part of my team at EFI. The first day they thought I was crazy. They probably still think 6 months later I'm crazy. But I talk about the ball on the 10-yard line. I talk about the need to get the ball over the line to score. We need to talk about winning for Florida, not winning for EFI. I stepped into an agency, and it's a great agency. My predecessor did a great job. But there were too many silos. There were too many walls, even within the organization. I had to make it abundantly clear that we're here to serve. I will not stand for walls within the organization or outside. We're here to work at the local, regional level. That's why Andrea's here. Thank you. That's why we need to be what? Engaged. That's why I'm on the road. In the first 5-6 months, I've traveled half the counties of this state, over 10,000 miles by car, untold number of plane rides, some of them pretty scary. Except for the flight yesterday. Where's my pilot? My pilot yesterday that whisked me back from the Capitol here in no time with a spectacular view of the Panhandle. Again, my thanks to you. My point is this. If I'm sitting behind a desk, either in the corporate office in Orlando or at the offices in Tallahassee, I'm not doing my job. I've got to be out and meeting and listening, hearing what people say. And what am I going to say to you? This area, I'm not saying it because I'm standing here before you this morning. This area is destined for great, great things. I'm going to talk about that. Great things if we have a clear vision, if we work together, and if we really, push and grow. I think you're headed for some, what I call transformational growth, some changes. And one reason for this, and I think you're going to hear part of this again today, is obviously the ability for your private sector, your public sector to work together, to work collaboratively, to share ideas, and to work as a team. And I think you have great examples of that right here in this area, in this region. As I've said, I'm a huge fan, a huge believer in public-private partnerships. I've done some of the nation's largest public-private partnerships successful. President Obama loves to take credit for the Port Miami Tunnel. The Port Miami Tunnel was a state project led by the state FDOT, 50% funded by the state. Thank you, state legislature. Oh my gosh, and funded by the Port of Miami. And the city of Miami helped and the county helped, but it was a state local project that finished under budget by tens of millions and on schedule. Probably one of America's best example of a true 3P, public-private. How the White House can take credit for it, I don't know, but they do. And I was amazed. I'm not getting into the politics. I'm not getting into politics. But the Vice President of the United States is in Miami last week, and I literally I almost fell off when Paul and I were driving and someone Twitter, whatever you call that stuff. Someone tweeted something that the Vice President was saying that Florida is not invested in its infrastructure. Florida, in particular, its ports aren't ready for the changing world. I almost exploded in the car, did I not? I mean, there were not enough choice words. So I got on the phone and I called the governor's chief of staff, and I was just could not believe it. Because why? Your legislature has invested in the last 4 years with the governor's recommendation, but wisely, your legislature's put $850 million in your ports all across this state. That's billions invested in our airports, our ports, our roads. We're building for tomorrow. How Joe Biden can talk about that we're not prepared when we're the most prepared state in the nation. We have the best infrastructure in the nation. We're in the center of the hemisphere, my friends. The center, we, Florida, in the center of the hemisphere. How can one say that we're not prepared? I hope somebody responds back to the White House. I certainly won't. I got a big mouth, can you tell? You know, it really just upset me when I saw that. I'm like, man, I got to talk to Joe Biden, you know. I've talked numerous times to the president. The White House owes us money. They owe the Florida legislature, they owe you and I money for projects in Jacksonville. They owe us $77 million on the Port of Miami's Deep Dredge, which opens next week. Thank you, Florida legislature. Thank you, Rick Scott. Because without leadership out of Tallahassee, we wouldn't be, you and I, at 50 feet of water. Florida, the only deep water port south of Norfolk, Virginia. Not Charleston, not Savannah, Florida. And that deepening next week, that opening of that project next week, again, on budget, on schedule, puts us in the big league, and that's an exciting thing. Well, let me get in really to the meat of it all. Let's talk about the military. Your tri-county relationship with the military, I think, is a perfect prime example of what successful partnerships can accomplish. Northwest Florida's military installations, including Okaloosa's 2 Air Force bases, serve as incredibly powerful economic engines that contribute, of course, mightily to the region and to the state's economy. It's huge. And again, serve as a prime example on how government and business can leverage, if you will, their capacities, their capabilities, and resources to benefit each other, right here in this part of our state. Installations like the Eglin Air Force Base, which is, of course, as you very well know, the nation's largest military base. I think those of you in uniform would agree that in return, our state, okay, and our local communities, like you right here, provide a high standard of support to our military missions. Governor Scott and Enterprise Florida and all of us are about jobs. And there's no question that our military bases are an important economic component of local and regional economies that generate thousands of good jobs for residents, as well as support a vast number of military-related businesses in our neighboring communities, again, here in Northwest Florida. All of this helps contribute in a meaningful way to a great quality of life in this corner of our state. This is true not just in the Northwest region of our state, but it's throughout our state. Statewide, defense is our third largest industry. It's right behind tourism and agriculture. And of course, Florida's 20 major military installations and our defense business presence statewide are responsible for about 10%, I repeat, 10% of the state's overall economy, and provide more than $75 billion to the Florida economy this year, and will generate, if you will, about 750,000 jobs statewide. One of the things we want to do at Enterprise Florida, and the governor talks about this, and this is important, again, for our Florida legislature. You see, I keep saying the Florida legislature. It's important that there's a partnership. The governor's the chief executive, but you got a legislative branch. I'm a big proponent of, of government understanding the rules. The governor has an important role, so does the legislature. And together, if they work well in sync together, then we're well oiled to move forward. Our governor and our legislature understand, as you do, the importance of military. And of course, Florida also greatly benefits from ex-military personnel. You all know this. I'm sure many in this room are ex-military. Those who complete their tour of duty, obviously those men and women who leave military bring great value to the economy of our cities and our counties and our state. Thanks to what? Thanks to their expertise they've developed while in the military, and of course to their strong work ethic. We boast here in Florida a workforce that ranks among the best trained in the nation, and the former retired military personnel help contribute to that reputation. We're proud to be one of the nation's, if you will, one of America's top military states. We're one of the top two. As our governor has said many, many times, our mission is to remain committed to keeping Florida the most military-friendly state in our nation. We're committed to that. We at Enterprise Florida take this commitment very seriously. And I want to again say to all who serve a great thank you for your dedication, for serving our nation, defending our nation. We certainly, I do, and I know everyone in this room certainly do appreciate it. Well, after more than 35 years of service, public service, which is amazing to me because I never thought I would be in public service, but 35 years, including a lot of infrastructure. I've done, I don't know how many billions and billions and billions of infrastructure. Each was a learning experience, each was fun, but each was an opportunity to work as part of a team. One of the things you have to do, especially if you're at the helm, is remain humble. You have to remember, as my father used to tell me, God bless my father, where I came from, your beginnings. And I was raised as a middle-class kid, very humble. Money was never an issue. The father, he worked hard, he became successful, but it wasn't about money. It was about respect. It was about giving back, those right values. And again, my father would always tell me the importance of, again, remembering family, remembering where you have come from. Those lessons have stayed true to me my entire career, my entire life. So I look back on my career. It's hard for me to believe that I am soon to be, in a few months, 62 years of age, and that I've had this blessed, fortunate opportunity to serve my community, serve my state. There's nothing better than that. But one of the things I've learned through 35 years is the importance and the value in partnerships. The importance of not only building infrastructure, but building relationships to make that infrastructure a reality. Relationships are what it's all about. And here in this community, in this county, I want to congratulate you all for many of your initiatives, which could not be, I think, accomplished without partnership. I think in many ways you serve as a national model. And this is part of the importance I want to get out today. And what I want to talk about are a couple of examples. I want to talk, for example, about the Destin-Fort Walton Beach Regional Airport. Well, how is that? What is that? That's an important collaboration. How? Why? Well, the airport is situated on property leased from Eglin Air Force Base. It's property that's leased. The long-term lease generates significant annual revenue for the base. A separate joint use agreement allows commercial airlines to use the Eglin runway and, of course, to pay fees to help maintain that runway and that airfield. That's a win-win. Another example, the water reclamation facility right here. Okaloosa County constructed a new 10 million gallon per day water reclamation facility on land leased from Eglin Air Force Base. The base receives more than $300,000 per year in addition to the maintenance of those wastewater lines provided by, again, the base. A third example, the Mid-Bay Bridge Authority. Eglin Air Force Base receives more than $3 million in payment, and in-kind of work from the Mid-Bay Bridge Authority for use of the Eglin property for the 11-mile connector for a road constructed by the authority. Again, a win-win partnership. These are wins. The University of Florida, my friends, you don't do nothing without having the connection to what? An important K through 12, public and private schools. The importance of STEM training, our legislature gets that. The importance of universities and colleges. Let me just slide off for a second here. I was preparing to go up to Connecticut and try to whisk away General Electric to get here. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for us, but let me tell you, the global headquarters out of Connecticut, while we may not have gotten that one, we're still going to get others, my friends. And let me tell you this, preparing for that, and the Speaker of the House went with me, and the Senate President was very kind. The Senate President sent, because he couldn't go at the same time with the House Speaker, he sent Senator Simmons. And let me tell you something, what did I want to show the 8 senior executives from GE, one of the oldest and largest companies in America, that in Florida, yes, we have a governor who's business friendly, but we also have a state legislature that also understands business as business friendly. And we also have private sector people here with us. And we had several of those with us, several board members who are private sector from banking and from other areas, to show that we in Florida can combine business with our elected officials to really marry that together to move our state forward. And I think in Florida, and that was extremely impressive, I think, to General Electric. But when you look at it, one of the things I hear most, and this is one of the questions they asked me at GE, they want to know what we're doing in patents. Do you ever think about patents? Well, we happen to lead, and we're one of the leading states in America out of all 50 in patents, coming from our universities. Last year was over 5,000, I believe the number from memory was over 5,000 patents last year in this state. What does that say? It says there's research going on. It says that our universities and you, private business, not we, government, but in partnership, we're doing things, we're creating things. That's something that many companies are interested in. Are you on the cutting edge? And we certainly are. Well, University of Florida Research Engineering Education Facility, the REEF. The REEF is on campus, and where? The campus is on an Eglin Air Force Base. And it supports the surrounding community with collaborating with the Air Force in terms of research in that lab. The UF REEF students can gain valuable experience while working with world-class researchers for the University of Florida and for our Air Force on challenging projects. And lastly, on this area would be, of course, this what I call the Holiday Inn Resort. Now, again, I understand this is a new hotel located on Okaloosa Island, and again, it's on Eglin Air Force Base property. It generates lease fees to the Air Force and discount rates to the military personnel, while simultaneously providing for a radar antenna, public-private collaboration. Yes, our relationship with the military is very, if you will, a very strong one, a very committed one, and it's one that serves all of us well. But perhaps just as importantly, the military continues to play a big role in helping our state achieve its prime economic agenda, our number one goal, which is the diversification of our economy. One of the things I've heard most over the last 6 months traveling the state from coast to coast, from the Gulf side over to the Atlantic side, covering over half of the 67 counties so far, is that our communities and our governor, and I think our legislature and we need to diversify the economy. Historically, and we all are fortunate, let's be blessed. We know we're blessed. Tourism continues to rank supreme. This year we'll do well over 100 million visitors to the state. Those welcomed guests will generate 24 to 25% of our sales tax for all of us statewide. Now let's put it in context. The largest state in the nation is California in population. They'll barely do 60 million visitors. Orlando alone this year will do probably somewhere around 62. We as a state, including this beautiful area up here, we're going to do right around 102, 103 million as we continue to grow. These are wise dollars invested by your Florida legislature in Visit Florida, the premier program in the world to market a destination. I want to copy that plan. As they market Florida as the premier tourist destination, I want to copy that co-op marketing with the private sector to sell Florida as the premier business destination in the world, not in the United States, in the world. And as I've traveled the 67 counties over the state, and most of those counties, they say to me, you know, Bill, we've got to diversify. Governor Scott likes to call it the safety net. Number one industry, tourism, thank you very much. Agriculture, Commissioner Putnam, thank you very much. Military, thank you very much. But we got to have more. If you have a softening in the economy like the recession of 08, 09, tourism falls off. We got to diversify, and that's what the legislature has asked Enterprise Florida to do, and that's what I intend to do. I want to promote and sell Florida as the premier location for manufacturing. I am offended that Florida's never had an auto manufacturing plant here. I won't say who, my first day on the job. I say, why has Florida never had auto manufacturing? Oh, we could never have auto manufacturing here. Why? We're too far south. Too far south of what? How does Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, how does every state have auto manufacturing but Florida? The state with the premier infrastructure, unbelievable skilled, trained workforce, and we're hungry for it. You're hungry for it. I call that a defeatist attitude. I call that the word no, and I don't like the word no. You can't work for me if you got the word no in your vocabulary. Not even maybe, the word yes. So you and I are going to put together a game plan. We're going to go visit our legislators respectfully. We're going to show them you need to invest X amount, and it's a big number, but it's going to be a 15, 20-year contract deal, and it's going to translate to hundreds and hundreds, actually into the billions of return to the economy. I don't think our legislature's ever been presented in a thoughtful way, a respectful way, that kind of a game plan. You're not going to get Volkswagen or Chevy or Mercedes here for $5 million. It's going to take special attention, special focus, with clearly a case study behind it. We have those case studies. We need to go speak with our legislators and show them what we need to do. We have some opportunities. You have some opportunities with Triumph funds. We have some opportunities to work together to make great things happen. So what are we talking about? I'm talking about civic leaders. Everywhere I go, I love it. There's people from the PTA, the county clerk, the mayor, the commissioner, city, county, small business. The backbone of Florida is small business. And what do I see when I travel and meet with these folk? Bill, we need to diversify the economy, and we intend to work with you to do that. If I have one message for you today, that message is going to be the following. How can you and I, how can we join forces to make our state the nation's leader in job creation and in job growth? Today, we are the nation's leader. We've overtaken Texas. We lead the nation in job generation. Thanks to the governor, thanks to the legislature. It's a partnership. Since Governor Scott came in 4.5 years ago, in this legislature, the number stands almost at 920,000 net private sector jobs in 4.5 years. We're the leading state in the nation, and we want to stay there. We want to grow that. And that sounds great. That sounds good. I ask you a couple questions. To stay there and to continue to prosper and grow, you need to have a shared vision. Remember I talked earlier about vision? Shared vision, not my vision, not EFI's vision. Your vision, my vision, shared vision with our legislature, with our governor, with our business, with our chambers, with our local economic development agencies, is shared vision. And I ask you, is Florida the state leading the way? Are we the state leading the way to a new era of growth and prosperity for this nation? I ask you, can we be the model for the United States and how we compete today in a changing, fiercely competitive global marketplace? The answer is unequivocally yes. If you think big, if you work in earnest together, in partnership, but we have to have a shared, clear vision. You're going to get lost in the forest if you don't have your right GPS, your right vision. As I turned around the bankrupt port of Miami, it wasn't my vision. It was Mickey Arison from Carnival Corporation, or Richard Fain from Royal Caribbean, or it was my shipping lines, Maersk and the other shipping lines. What did they think? Not what I think. It's their money, because they're paying the bills. What do they think? We had to have a clear, shared, united vision. 8 years when I exited the port of Miami, we'd gone from basically bankruptcy, losing $1 million a month on the operating side for 2 years in a row, to its strongest financial position in its 100-year history. We had found our way, not by bluster, not by bullying, but by talking and partnering with the community, with our state, with our legislature, and with our governor. Shared, clear vision. I think you get a sense I like to think big. The ball's on the 10-yard line. I want to score. But why should we, you and I, not think big? Okay? I believe that we, Florida, is on the cusp, you especially in the Great Northwest, we're on the cusp of new growth. I think that we do realize, we do understand we face great competition. But we're up for the game. We're suited. We're ready to go. We've got a good game plan. By any measure, I know, we are one of the nation's probably the best, most attractive locale in the nation for business growth, especially here in this region of our state. We're growing again. But also let me say this to you. While we're growing, not everybody in every corner of this state has felt that turnaround since the recession of 08-09. Some communities still have double-digit unemployment or poverty. This particular region right in here, you're doing well, but I can go to surrounding communities here, they're not doing well. They're at 08-09 numbers or below. The vast majority of Florida is doing extremely well, especially the large urban areas. But this is not a time to gloat. This is not a time to sit back and say, oh, my business is doing well, let's take a vacation. This is the time to skinny down, push the foot to the accelerator. This is the time to work doubly hard, double down, let's move forward, let's do it, let's grow. What are we doing here? We're growing. We're one of the 2 fastest growing states in the nation. We grow at over 800 new residents every day, 7 days a week. That's huge. That's hundreds of millions of new revenues for the representative to deal with in Tallahassee. I think the number is going to be something like, I'm told, 1.8 billion. With the 300,000 plus new residents. Do you realize some states are losing population? Last year, the state of New York lost over 60,000. You gained 270,000 new residents last year. You'll gain over 300,000 this year. Let's welcome them. Let's welcome our tourists. Let's welcome our new visitors who come and get gainfully employed, open up businesses, and help grow and expand the economy. We're the nation's 3rd largest populated state at over 20 million. That's consumption. 100 million plus visitors, that's consumption. One area alone, you got 15 seaports, you got 19 commercial airports. If we get all of our businesses to move all of their commodity away from the port of Savannah and move it through a Florida port, you're going to create billions of dollars of extra added value. Let me just tell you, I just told you how large we are in population and visitors. That's huge consumption. 50% of what we consume, our visitors and us, 50% half comes through a non-Florida port. It's coming from the port of LA, Long Beach, or Savannah in particular. That's a loss of literally billions of dollars of wealth to the economy of Florida. It's a loss of tens upon tens of high-paying jobs. Let's focus on that. If you are a business and you're bringing your product in through the Port of New Orleans, the port director there is a great personal friend. The port director in Savannah is a friend. Forget that. They're friends. I'll have a beer with them. Bring your product not through the Port of New Orleans. Gary won't miss it. Bring it through here. Bring it through one of your ports and add to the economy and add to the job growth in our state. Well, again, I like to say Florida's doing well. We're coming back. But again, let's put the foot to the pedal. One of my biggest concerns and fears is complacency. Mark Wilson from the Florida Chamber and I talk about this often. We both have the same concern, the same fear. If we lean back and say, hey, we've made it, we're in trouble. There's many, many challenges. There's many, many, if you will, issues to deal with. My biggest issue right now is making sure that we're teed up Committees start next week. I'll be testifying before Senator Nancy Dieter's committee on commerce and tourism. I'll respond to the questions of my fellow, or the legislators, in a meaningful way to hopefully get some of the positive word out in terms of why EFI exists, what we do, why we do it, and how we're in partnership with you at the local, regional level. But again, part of the challenge is this, and again, I got a representative sitting right here, and I say this in a respectful way. We need to compete. We're in a global competition. Texas, the Carolinas in particular, the surrounding southern states. You feel it more than most. You feel the pressure here more than the folks in Naples or Miami feel, because you're competing day to day, if you will, right across the state boundary, the state border. It's tough when I had an allocation of $43 million for the toolkit. And I just put it in perspective. This is not being argumentative. We got 43. We owe 31 according to DOE. I can't write the checks. They're my fiduciary agent. They write the checks. We owe 31. I'm left with 12 or 13 for the whole year. Since July 1, when the year went into effect, our fiscal year, we've done three transactions, or 4 or 5 transactions. We basically, between us and my fiduciary agent, which is DEO, we have about a handful of deals costing about $3 million of state resources. I'm left with about $9 million. Now again, this ebbs and flows every day. Some deals fall in, some deals fall out. If it stood today and I had to close on the transactions that we're working, and I didn't have the money because I can't just make the money up, we would lose somewhere a little over 8,000 jobs as it stands today, and we would lose about, I think the number is about $1.2 billion of capital investment. And again, this is not scare tactics. This is only putting things in perspective. Even if it was the total $43 million I got to spend, compare that with Arkansas, with less than 3 million population. They got 50 million. I'm competing with Texas with well over 100 million. Most states spend in that high range. We need somewhere in the range, truly, of new money in the range of about 45 to 50 million a year to be competitive with ours in the closing fund. As I said a few minutes ago at the beginning, that's our failure. Our failure at EFI is that we have not kept the eye on the ball. We have not paid the right level of attention to the legislature, especially one-on-one, and doing nothing but providing them information, not lobbying them, providing them information in terms of what we do. I hope to start doing some of that in the next few weeks in the House and the Senate at committees in a respectful way, and get past, the blister and get past the rhetoric of that we're fighting each other. I don't want to fight with anyone, especially my legislature. I want to be in sync with my Florida legislature. So we want to do, and we're going to do what we can. Now, with that said, the Florida legislature was incredibly gracious on a number of areas last session. Incredibly gracious. They funded $10 million. This is the first ever. Enterprise Florida, you and I received $10 million to effectively market Florida as a business destination. That's a first. Our responsibility, my responsibility, is to demonstrate to the legislature and to demonstrate to you with your input and support that we're good stewards of that money, that we're properly selling our state around the nation, more importantly around the world, as the premier business destination. I'm not criticizing the past, but I sure ain't going to do it with orange ties, which was what our marketing campaign was before. I actually intend to not show sandcastles, left that up to be Visit Florida. I intend to show actual aircraft, because the opportunity to manufacture aircraft or manufacture a car. I want to show people in lab coats. I want to show that we're a leading state in IT. I mean, I get no delight to flying out to Silicon Valley for a day. But that's needed. I got an invitation, a rare invitation, I will tell you, from Amazon. I spent a day at corporate headquarters in Seattle a few weeks ago. That invitation doesn't go to anyone. Again, it was through connections. I got a day in the corporate offices, many meetings, 4 separate important meetings for a full day with executives at Amazon. They're getting ready to announce another big announcement in our state. They're doing million square foot facilities. They're there. I spent the next day with the corporate office of Starbucks. They're growing in our state. They opened up the Latin headquarters here for Starbucks in our state. My job is to be where the action is, and to try and influence decision makers and companies to advocate why Florida is the state for Amazon to continue to grow. I want auto manufacturing. That's my audacious goal. I want you to have that. So to close up, quite simply, we're on track, if you will, to continue to grow. I want you, hopefully in sync with us, to be respectful of Clay Ingram, to Representative Gates, and to everyone else who really carry the water for us, who really help us. We don't want to beat up on them. We want to show them respect. We want to show them that we are what? Good partners. We need to refresh our brand. We need to refresh how we sell the state. We can do that together. We will be out and about. I mean, if it's, the governor's getting ready to do a 1 or 2 day trip to Kentucky. We've been to California for a day. We've been to Connecticut, New York. We've been to Pennsylvania. These are typically 1 day trips in and out. Selling Florida, articulating why this is the state. Let's not think small. Let us think big. Let us have a clear vision. Let us work in partnership together. And together, let us grow our great state. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.